Midway USA brand product designers have one straightforward goal: develop high-quality, technically sound products and deliver them to customers at reasonable prices. If you are immersed in the shooting sports industry and pay close attention to every single detail, you know our products are built right and stand up to everyday use. Who has shooting mats and range bag systems to hunting clothing and just about everything for the outdoors? Log on and shop 24/7 with super fast shipping. MidwayUSA.com. Hunting is not easy. It never has been. It takes dedication, motivation, a lot of patience, and quality gear. If you manage a food plot, put up stands, or need just one more game camera, we can help at MidwayUSA.com. We opened our doors in 1977 and continue to put customers first by offering super fast, same-day shipping. For just about everything for the outdoors, go to MidwayUSA.com.
You hear that? That's the sound of comfort in a dish. Golden, bubbling, hearty layers that stick to your ribs and feed a crowd. But forget tuna noodle from a box. Today we're talking wild casseroles, venison lasagnas, duck and wild rice bakes, salmon and nettle gratins, mushroom strata pulled straight from the forest. This is the kind of food that turns a long day in the woods into a feast that lasts all week. Grab a drink, grab a seat, and let's get going.
Join Justin Townsend and the Harvesting Nature crew as they explore the world of cooking wild fish and game while sharing recipes, tips, tricks, and lessons learned from their pursuit of wild food. We sure hope you ate before the show, 'cause you're gonna leave hungry. This is the Wild Fish and Game Podcast.
Hey everybody! As you may guess, today we're diving into the world of wild food casseroles. We'll talk about how to layer flavors, how to make them hold together, how to take simple wild proteins and turn them into family-style meals. I'll be walking you through the techniques, the tips, and the tricks for better casseroles with my good buddy Adam.
Hello, guys.
He's going to kick us off with some historical context and explain how casseroles became the comfort food that we all know today. But first, I want to give you a little plug for our pig camp. So, the second weekend in December, we've got still 2 seats available for our pig camp down in Texas. This is a Thursday arrival, Friday, Saturday, Sunday departure for a all-inclusive pig hunting camp. So we call it pig hunting skills camp, we call it wild pig hunting culinary camp, we call it many different names, but essentially what you would do is come join everybody down there and we'll walk you through shooting, get you out hunting Friday and Saturday, and then I think this time we're going to offer night hunts, which is something we haven't done before, but I think we're going to do it as a trial run this one, so it'll be a good opportunity. If you've never used a thermal to hunt wild pigs, this is a great time to do that. And then each day you're going to go through a series of butchering classes and cooking classes, and then some history and background conservation as well. But the big thing is that it's a hands-on learning experience for you to learn to shoot, hunt, butcher, process, and cook wild pigs. So you'll be hands-on butchering your own pigs with us helping you out, looking over your shoulder, answering any questions that you need help with, all the way from the time you pull the trigger on the pig to when you bring it in to butcher, to then vac sealing it, getting it in the freezer for transport home. So usually people harvest 1 to 2 pigs on this trip, and then you end up eating gourmet cuisine prepared by Adam and myself a little bit as well, depending on if I'm available to make it this time or not. But it's a great opportunity to come hang out with us, eat some delicious food, and take home some highly invasive animals. So go visit our website. You can go to harvestingnature.store and you can see the availability. I think we have 2 spots left. So grab them quick because they're going to be gone, I'm guessing, before the end of this week. Anyway, thanks everybody for that. And we'll kick back over to the history of the casserole.
Yeah, so moving from the future, where you'd definitely be joining our pig camps, or maybe purchasing one for someone's Christmas present, which would be a great idea. I'm going to move into their deep past. So, the casserole might feel like something like a 1950s potluck dish with canned soup and potato chips on top. But the concept of layering food in one vessel, baking it slowly, goes back thousands of years. The word casserole itself comes from the French casse, meaning saucepan or dish, which makes sense. But nearly every culture has its own version. Ancient Mediterranean, so like the Greeks, they were making moussaka, layering eggplant and lamb and sauce, kind of a prototype of moussaka. Same thing with lasagna. In Italy, and the Romans were baking layered cheese and pasta dishes that were basically lasagna's great-great-grandparents. Also a casserole when you think about it. The French created gratin, which is potato and cream baked under a brown crust. And in Britain, shepherd's and cottage pie were being made for feeding working families for centuries. So all these casseroles were making their way across Europe, but it wasn't just Europe. In the Middle East, Persians were making takchin, which I'm probably mispronouncing. It's basically a layered rice and meat casserole with a nice, beautiful golden crust on the bottom, the tadig. In Mexico, stacked enchiladas. In Asia, clay pot rice, noodle bakes, all carry that same casserole DNA. Basically starch, protein, sauce, and seasoning cooked together until they become something greater than the sum of their parts, which is the beauty about casseroles. When settlers came to North America, they adopted a lot of these casserole traditions to local ingredients. So you'd be finding like venison, wild turkey baked under cornbread crust, or maybe wild rice layered with game and root vegetables. These were all influenced by indigenous foodways as well, which brought about like cornmeal mushes, baked grain and meat dishes, nut-based breads, and all that found their way into North American casserole cooking as well. These weren't the neat, like Pyrex, your grandma's Pyrex dish casseroles you think of today, but they were hearty one-pot survival food. Efficient, delicious, filling, and you could really stretch meat a long way with them. The casseroles as we picture them in your grandma's Pyrex, bubbly, baked in like a big family-sized dish, they really took off in the 19th and 20th centuries when ovens became common in middle-class homes. So before that, it was hard to get an oven in your home, but the advent of electricity in the house and the coil, topped oven really brought it into every single home. Immigrant families from Italy, Greece, France brought lasagna, moussaka, gratin. Americans embraced that efficiency, and all the Germans coming into the Midwest and the Scandinavians brought their own as well. And these casseroles were able to feed big families, stretch small amounts of meats, and used up a lot of leftovers, which, was really good, especially when food was scarce. And then came the casserole boom. So people were already making casseroles, but after the Great Depression, World War II, people were using casseroles as kind of a lifesaver. Like there was meat rationing, but you could really bulk it out with like pasta or rice or potatoes that you're growing from your own garden. Then after the war, there was a food revolution where canned soup kind of really came into play. And canned soup became the star of the casserole. So noodle tuna casserole, cream and mushroom soup, like that was basically the poster child of the 1950s culture, like that convenient food culture. You'd be finding these dishes at church suppers, PTA meetings, family potlucks, in pretty much every single cookbook available. Casseroles are just everywhere. I don't know if you're like me and you go to thrift stores, look at cookbooks. You can find a lot of microwave cookbooks and a lot of casserole cookbooks. But there's a kind of funny thing that happened in that casseroles became almost too practical. They began to get a bad reputation for being bland and cheap, a little too easy to make, maybe a little blah. By the 1970s, casserole was almost being used as a dirty word in foodie circles. Everyone had a story being traumatized by, like Aunt Linda's tuna surprise or something.
Surprise!
Surprise! And the only surprising part of it was how like beige and blah it actually tasted, I think. So still, some people took casseroles very seriously. In the 50s, Campbell Soup Company basically built their entire empire on casseroles. They even had test kitchens churning out new cream of something soups, like cream of celery, cream of mushroom, cream of chicken, and that was just to sell more casserole recipes. Often the can comes with its own recipe directly on the can for it. There's even an old ad campaign that bragged that casseroles could save marriages, because apparently nothing kept a husband happier than a weekly tuna bake. I don't know if that would keep me happy or not. Despite the process era during the 50s to 70s, the real heart of the casserole never went away. Hunters, anglers, and foragers are still layering meat, roots, and grains into cast iron and baking it by the fire. Venison shepherd's pie, nettle mash, duck and wild rice bakes, salmon and dill gratin. all those have the direct ancestors in those old casserole traditions that were brought over from Europe and elsewhere. So while casseroles may conjure up images of Tupperware potlucks and canned soup shortcuts and your kind of beige childhood food memories, the true history is a lot richer and older, and they've always been about resourcefulness, comfort, and stretching what you have. And that's exactly why casseroles and wild foods are a match made in heaven. I think every hunter is resourceful and makes do with what they have, and bringing that food home with them and making casseroles just makes a lot of sense to me. So if we're talking about, like, now we're going to talk about the history, how do you make a casserole? What are the basics of it? It seems really easy. It seems like that anyone can do it, but people still actually mess it up sometimes. Do you have some tips and tricks for us, Justin?
I do. So really, for me, casseroles come down to three things, right? And you're going to hear these words kind of uttered throughout, but these are the three really key components that you want to take away from this show if you're new to casserole making, or if you really want to hone your casserole making chops. One being moisture. So moisture balance, which, you don't want too soupy, but you don't want super dry. You want to be able to layer your flavors in there, and then the toppings, which I think is super key when you're talking about a casserole, because everybody loves that initial like crunch of the spoon in, and then the follow through with like a perfectly moist but not crumbly interior. So let's talk about moisture control. So too much liquid and you've got soup, too little and the whole thing's dry. Moisture's the make or break factor, I think, in a casserole, and it's really important when you're working with wild ingredients that already can tend to be lean and a little bit on the drier side, and they're quick to dry out too if you overcook them, which especially could happen if you're doing it in the oven. So game meats are lean. They don't release as much fat, which is great for flavor concentration, but it also means you run the risk of ending up with a dry, tough dish. On the other hand, ingredients like mushrooms or fish can release a surprising amount of water, which flood the casserole if you don't handle them properly. That trick's balance. You want to pre-cook some ingredients, so you want to brown your meats first, you saute your mushrooms, and dry to get rid of that extra liquid. You can parboil some of your starchy bases like potatoes and wild rice so that it absorb instead of release moisture, and then you add fat where the meat won't naturally render. So duck fat, butter, cream, cheese, or even a simple bechamel sauce can go a long way. The sauce should coat your ingredients without drowning them. So you want to aim for consistency that just holds everything together. The oven will finish the work, melding the flavors and biting the whole dish into one harmonious bite. Step 2, so layering. This separates truly great casseroles from a jumbled bake. Every bite should have balance. You should get a bit of starch, protein, vegetable, and sauce, not like random packets of flavor. You want to start with a foundation that can handle juices. So think about potatoes, noodles, wild rice, cultivated rice, many grains, lots of different opportunities there. But your base acts like a sponge. It soaks up the drippings from the meat and the sauce. And then next comes your protein. Your venison, duck, turkey, fish, mushrooms, little pre-cooked, parboiled, par-cooked, whatever you want to call it, seasoned well so that it adds depth instead of watering down the dish. You don't want just chunks of flavorless nothing floating around inside your soupy casserole. And then I think about it going to the Wednesday night church dinner, and there's always like 15 casseroles, and then 2 of them are probably seasoned properly, and you got to grab the salt and pepper, and sometimes people skip over it, but you got to try everything because you don't want to offend anybody, and everybody's watching who's getting bites of their casseroles because there's like a secret internal competition amongst the casserole makers.
It can get pretty hairy sometimes, the casserole competition.
So you want to avoid that like bland, flavorless one that everybody kind of skips over. Then you lose your reputation. But when you're thinking through the steps, so we've talked about sauce, our foundation, we've got our protein, and then we're going to layer our vegetables in. So think vegetables or even wild edibles. You can saute them if necessary to concentrate their flavors and prevent sogginess. I think about spinach, right? You don't want to cook a pile of spinach inside the casserole. You'd rather saute the spinach off, let it reduce down. You could take 5 bags to give you a cup and then mix it in. And then what you really want is between each layer, each addition, you're going to add the sauce or binder. So cream, stock reduction, an egg mixture, or a bechamel. Think of it like building a lasagna, even though you're not making lasagna. And then each layer should be distinct but connected. The key is restraint too. So don't overload one section and leave another bare. You want balance across the board. And then you'll just repeat this until you've reached the top and you've finished the sauce or binder before adding the topping. When you slice into it, the layers should hold their shape but still meld together, giving you structured comfort in every forkful. This isn't a hard rule though. When I think about casseroles, the first wild version that comes to mind is a venison's shepherd's pie. Browned ground venison on the bottom, veggies in the middle, mashed potatoes on top. Despite breaking the rules, I'm telling you, it works. But understanding how all these things sort of, connect allows you to break the rules. So you got to understand before you can rebel. But finally, I think a very crucial part that everybody really, really enjoys is the topping. And this is sort of like the crown jewel of the casserole. It's the part that sells the first bite before the fork even hits your mouth. It's not just about flavor, it's about texture. Without a proper topping, casseroles can feel one note, just like a glob or heavy or mushy, but a great topping should add crunch, contrast, and a visual cue that the dish is finished. Classic options include breadcrumbs tossed in butter or lard, shredded cheese that melts down and browns, or even thinly sliced potatoes fanned across the surface. If you really want to get fancy, make them look like fish scales. Looks really visually appealing. And then with wild foods, you can get even more creative. Crushed nuts like pecans, toasted seeds, fried tuber slices like sunchokes or wapato, burdock root, foraged herbs blended into the crumb. The timing is key. You want to cover the casserole for most of its bake and let the inside cook. You remove the cover for the final 10 to 15 minutes to let the top crisp up. If you add it too early, it risks burning. Too late, it won't develop. A perfect topping gives you that audible crunch when your spoon breaks through it, followed by the soft, savory richness underneath. And that's the contrast, the crust and the comfort. That's what makes casseroles unforgettable. And a big one, season every layer. Don't just season the top or the sauce. A little salt and herbs in each layer means the whole dish tastes balanced, not bland. And don't forget to taste as you go what you can.
Hey guys, this is Melissa Bachman. Are you ready to stop spooking deer before it's even time to hunt them? Then you need the new Flex S Dark cellular trail camera from SpyPoint. With a no-glow flash option, long-lasting solar power, and a ton of settings that can be changed anytime through the SpyPoint app, there are no more excuses for letting your deer get wise before the season even starts. So check it out for yourself and see why the SpyPoint Flex S Dark is the unstoppable and undetectable scouting tool you need for your next hunt.
Tito's Handmade Vodka is America's favorite vodka for a reason. From the first legal distillery in Texas, Tito's is 6 times distilled till it's just right. And naturally gluten-free, making it a high-quality spirit that mixes with just about anything. From the smoothest martinis to the best Bloody Marys. Tito's is known for giving back, teaming up with nonprofits to serve its communities and do good for dogs. Make your next cocktail with Tito's. Distilled and bottled by 5th Generation Inc., Austin, Texas. 40% alcohol by volume. Savor responsibly.
So the question remains, Adam, how do we incorporate wild game into our casseroles?
Well, there's a lot of different options. First, I wanted to ask you, though, are you say you got a big casserole in front of you, family style, you can get your own piece. Which piece are you going for? Are you a corner kind of guy? Are you a middle kind of guy? Edge?
Oh, I
both?
like the corner piece. Yeah.
Yeah.
I like
I'm all about the
piece.
corner.
Yeah, me too. I think you get that good contrast. You get the crunch on the top. Usually, like the sides got kind of a bit of more crunch, more texture to it, and then you get kind of the contrast of the the filling, which is good overall.
Yeah, definitely. I like the extra crunch because the crunch for me is a big part of what I like about a casserole. And then I like the extra Maillard reaction that's happening while it's like kind of cooking against the side of the casserole dish. So you get a little more browning, a little more flavor. It's a little drier, but I don't know if I've ever eaten a casserole that wasn't drowned in hot sauce, so that doesn't matter so much for me.
Yeah.
So I do find even with all the flavors and everything you can add, casseroles tend to be a little bland for my palate still.
Yeah.
But a little hot sauce on there, and I'm like all about it.
I think too that's like par for the course, right? The fact that you're making something for, a wide range of flavors. Like if you're making something for yourself and you're like, all right, I'm going to portion this out and I'm going to eat off this the whole week, then you know exactly what to do. Exactly. But if you're like, all right, I'm taking this.
Grandma and the toddler have to eat it too, then
Yeah, like I definitely, season food differently than a lot of my family or, things like that. Or if I was going to a big, if I'm going to a big event, like what I want people to say is like, oh my gosh, this is the best tasting thing ever. Yeah. But, sometimes people are like, that's spicy or that's over seasoned or, it's very interesting because if I had some surprising wild game personalities taste my food before and not say it tastes bad, but that it's over seasoned or it's spicier than they anticipate. Yeah. Not mentioning Clay Newcomb or anything, but some there's definitely folks out there in the wild food world who have tasted it and had questions as to the awesomeness of its flavor.
Yeah, I think a lot of the Midwest cooking. Not to say that there isn't flavor in Midwest cooking, but it tends to be a little more on the subtle side. Yeah. So even the regionality kind of affects, like someone from a spicier climate's probably going to make a spicier kind of thing, or someone from with Germanic or Norse roots probably going to stick a little plainer. So I think it's part of the deal as well. I know my Dutch relatives can't eat any of my cooking because it's too spicy and too overwhelming, too many herbs and citrus and spices and stuff. So I think it's regionality plays a role too. But that's what hot sauce is for.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, something that can really fix it up.
Maybe that's a strategy. Ooh, maybe we're onto something in the development of casseroles. We're gonna expand on the world of casseroles. Let's talk about side sauces for casseroles.
Yeah.
You should have, maybe we should like have a side sauce, right? So maybe if you're making something, let's think of, I don't know, let's just throw something together. Let's say like some venison with potatoes and some sort of vegetable. I don't know. What do you got?
Corn.
Corn? All right. So let's do venison. We're already on to something very good. Sauce base, probably, we'll say brownish.
Yeah, I would say.
Brownish sauce base. Yeah. Cheese or no cheese? Or gratin.
Yeah, maybe light cheese. I always like some like Parmesan or something rather than a big heavy layer.
Okay.
I'll take this moment to make another confession. My food confessions. This is my food diary. I don't really like
an intro song for that.
I don't really like lasagna that much. I don't like things with big layers of baked cheese on top. Ooh. It makes me kind of sick to my stomach a little bit. I'll always eat it. It's not like I hate it or anything. And I've had some good ones too. But it's like those really cheesy casseroles just make my stomach kind of turn. So I always like a really light cheese or just a smattering of like Parmesan or something. But
okay, all right. So
I don't know how do you feel about the cheese that cheese layer?
You know what's funny is we've been eating at like a local pizza place here recently, and I get their like supreme pizza equivalent. So it's like pepperonis and sausage and ham, and it's got a few other like veggies and stuff on it too. But they put these giant dollops of ricotta cheese on it, like piped out of a piping bag, and I'm honestly getting over it. And we've been eating probably there like once a week for the past couple weeks or so, and I'm just like, I don't know, I'm a little over it at this point. What I was gonna say is, that's probably holding true for the lasagna as well. I like lasagna. I don't put a bunch of cheese in between each layer, and I think like if you start getting too much cheese in your casserole, you start getting into like the space of dip for
exactly. Yeah.
for like a Super Bowl party or something. So I think that's kind of where my heart's at with that. But what I was going to say is, let's think about our side sauce. We've really built this really cool casserole so far. So we've got chunks of venison, we've got corn in there, we've got potatoes, this brown sauce, and like a little bit of light Parmesan on the top. I'm going to have a side sauce of some chimichurri.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Yeah.
I think we mix
a little
it
bit
up.
of acid cut through, some like herbaceousness.
Yeah.
You could do a touch of heat if you wanted.
Yeah.
In there.
So really, I think we need to popularize the addition of the casserole side sauce.
Yeah, I'm into it. Because you can do like a shepherd's pie might be good with gravy. A lot of the noodle bake ones I find go great with Louisiana style hot sauce because you get the vinegar kind of cutting through all that like rich, basic kind of flavor. A little bit of heat to spice things up. So something like a Frank's would work great.
So let me ask you this. We're going to go off on a little bit of a tangent here, but it's our show, so we can do it. Do you consider baked macaroni to be a casserole?
To a degree. I think it's in the kind of the gray area on the outer edges, but you are layering a starch with like a cream, and maybe you don't put meat in it, but I don't think you have to have meat to have a casserole.
It's true. I don't think
you're
you
baking it with a kind of crunchy top, even if it's just the cheese crisping up. So I would say it's in the casserole realm.
Because I would say that hot sauce, or so when I visit my wife's family, they do like pickles, which is like that slaw. It's kind of a
spicy
slaw to put on
Vinegary.
there. That really goes really good on baked mac and cheese. So I'm just thinking, I think naturally we're adding additions to casseroles and we're not even paying attention to it. So I would say next time you go to your wild game party or your big potluck or whatever, and you're taking a casserole, you got to go with the side sauce. Casserole side sauce.
Yeah, you'll win that competition, the casserole competition that we talked about earlier.
Yep. I strayed us away. Now let's bring us back. Let's
get back into
hit me with some wild elements.
Yeah, let's see how we can add more wild elements into our casseroles. Let's start with red meat, like venison, elk, moose, antelope, that kind of thing. I would say it's one of the best candidates for casseroles, but it does come with some quirks, which you got to respect. Because unlike beef, venison, elk are lean and can dry out if you toss raw chunks into the dish. The fix for this is pretty easy. You just pre-cook it. Brown the ground venison in a skillet with onions and garlic, or slow cook and shred the shoulder, shank, or neck after braising, and then add it to the casserole. And that way the meat brings flavor and tenderness instead of like chewiness. And a creamy bechamel or tomato-based sauce really helps the lean protein and starch layers like potatoes, noodles, or wild rice kind of soak up all that richness and combined. And we've been talking about bechamel actually a lot, but if you don't know what it is, it's a classic French white mother sauce, which is made from a roux, which is just flour and butter kind of cooked to thicken, and milk. It's versatile, creamy sauce that forms the foundation of many other dishes, including lasagnas, gratins, mac and cheese, and other casseroles. So if you made some of these things and kind of made like a white sauce for it, that's basically your bechamel. Traditionally, it's flavored with a hint of nutmeg, seasoned with a little salt and pepper, but you can also play with it and make it kind of fit your dish. So anyways, that's what bechamel sauce is. When working with wild game, you also have to think about fat as a supporting actor. So you don't want it to be, dry. So you're talking cream, butter, wild lard, cheese, sauces like bechamel, whatever, egg sauces. Those kind of can carry those bold, wild flavors. When treated properly, wild meat turns casseroles from a kind of a budget meal into a comfort food with a backbone. It's got some flavor. It's not just like your bland ground beef from the store. It's got like some awesome hefty flavor, why I love adding red meat to some of this. Your best bets for big game meat is going to be like your ground burger, sausage. You can just use like if you have a whole bunch of Italian sausage or whatever made, that's works perfectly for casseroles. Or like we said, braising and shredding the meat from the neck, shoulder, brisket, shanking, and those kind of things. Moving on to wild waterfowl, so we're talking duck, goose, sandal crane, any of those kind of things. It really adds a lot of richness, which is perfect for casseroles. The duck and goose have that deep earthy flavor that pairs beautifully with grains like wild rice or barley. Noodles and potatoes work as well, but I find once you get into waterfowl, wild rice just really, really works well with them. Like they were meant to be together. And whether that's your wild rice, your kind of fake wild rice blend from the grocery store, or like the real wild rice, I would recommend you try the real wild rice as well, but either works well. The key with waterfowl is handling the fat. So, on a winter mallard or goose, you can have a surprising amount of fat from the skin. So if you pluck your birds like me, you want to be sure to remove the skin before putting it in, because that can render so much fat out and just make your whole thing really, really greasy.
You know what? I forget what the full dish was, but it was at Rendezvous this year, and Tom Healy made a dish. It was a dessert dish, but he had turkey skin cracklings as a partial topping. So in my mind, I'm thinking like pull that skin off and then set it aside, make it into cracklings, and then crumble it over the top of your dish. And
that's the way to do it.
Holy smokes, that's going to create like another element of crunch and flavor that it's just going to be wild.
Yeah, and then you can save the rendered fat for another something or else, then have those cracklings spread on top. Yeah, now we're talking. If you're using goose legs or duck legs, they're going to be a lot tougher, so you want to braise them first and then shred them and then layer those into the casserole so you don't end up with like chewing on a chunk of meat. So yeah, don't just like chop up your legs and throw them into a casserole and hope for the best. It's not going to work out very good. Goose breasts, because they're so large when sliced thin or cooked rare or turned into corned goose, can mimic beef in layering dishes, while duck can add some luxurious flavor. But if you're going to be cooking that breast meat, make sure you either braise, pull apart, or only cook it to medium. Because if you cook it too much, so I wouldn't say like part cook it too much, because it can be like livery and crumbly and gross. Try pairing waterfowl with mushrooms, cream sauces, and even sometimes like dried fruits like cranberries or cherries or blueberries can really highlight their richness. Fruit always goes with wild game. Yeah, it's great. Have you ever used any turkey or upland birds for casseroles?
I have. So, classic turkey, I think, is definitely at the top of the list for that. I find, too, like, especially turkey, if you've got shredded meat leftovers or anything like that, but even grouse, I think grouse, pheasant's also another one you're pretty common that you would see in like casseroles, but you could sub that out for any turkey recipes. But I think grouse or quail, I have used them quail before. I like to use the quail in a like a cornbread dressing type casserole. It's really good, and I'll kind of cook everything and then put some of the legs up on the top and arrange it really nicely, and that's part of the like crunchy element that brings to it. But I think really if you want to win people over with casseroles, start with like your upland game birds, and those are going to be really good because you get a mild flavor. It feels familiar. It's like chicken bakes, but it's not. It's got richer, it's an earthier twist. You can incorporate some of those darker birds like grouse and quail in there. The biggest challenge you're going to face is your dryness. These birds are way leaner than domestic chicken, so you've got to build that moisture back in. So a creamy binder, think like a mushroom bechamel, some turkey stock cream sauce, or even like an egg and cream mixture is going to do wonder to prevent that dryness. I think like the classic, take turkey tetrazzini, right, and incorporate some ramps or nettles in there. Will be really good. Oh my gosh! Speaking of nettles, I thought of you. I was watching it on the Instagrams. There's a nettle eating contest.
Oh, I saw this.
You saw the video of it where people were just like pounding raw nettles, and I'm like, oh my gosh!
In England, I think.
Oh, people, their faces are all red, and they're just like eating and eating and eating. I'm just like,
just masochist.
Good for you. But I'll say, while the pheasant noodle bake with mushroom cream sauce can be a comfort food at its finest. And also, too, like, ditch the can. That's the easy button, right? But all those soups and all those cream sauces that you can get in a can from Campbell's, Big Soup, as we'll call them, you can make those at home. And
they're not hard to make.
No, and when you break out the ingredients, it's about the same, and you're going to end up with a better quality. You're going to end up with better texture. You're going to end up with way better flavor, and
probably half the sodium.
Yeah, I was about to say way less sodium. Yeah. So with grouse, pheasant, dove, quail, since they're smaller, they can be boned and shredded. Or you can layer in like whole chunks of breasts in there, which is really good since they're small enough. Cube them up if you need to. The trick is to poach or sear the meat first. I would give it just a quick sear and then fold it into your casserole with plenty of sauce so it finishes gently in the oven. And definitely watch that cooking temperature because they'll dry out really fast. And you'll end up with this nice, creamy, delicious sauce. And then it's you're hit those bits. And we've all had it happen before because I know it. I've had it happen. Adam's had it happen. But you have got this really moisture-laden sauce, and then you hit the meat, and it just is a sponge and sucks all the moisture out of your mouth. Just be careful with that. Pay attention to those cooking times and those temps. And but I think another one that I really love is wild fish. And wild fish is really easy to incorporate into casseroles, and I think they're going to surprise you because we're going to kind of talk beyond the your standard tuna surprise or whatever you want to call it. But if you go to a place like Britain, fish pie has been a staple for centuries. So that's flaked fish in a cream sauce topped with mashed potatoes and baked until it's bubbly. And you can really do the same with salmon, trout, pike. Really, any fish is going to be really good. I would think even your saltwater fish is going to go really, really well. The key to challenge is moisture because fish release moisture as it cooks, which can really swamp out your casserole. So to manage that, you're either going to lightly cook or flake the fish first and pair it with a starch like potatoes, wild rice, or even egg-based binders to absorb excess liquids. Pasta is going to be a great one. We talked about that as well. And then smoked fish. If you want to talk about upping your fish casserole game, try smoked trout or salmon. You could layer it with onions, potatoes, even cream sauce, or a fish stock, and almost a brown gravy would work as well. Mm-hmm. It's gonna taste luxurious, but you can also incorporate some different fun herbs into it: dill, fennel, sorrel. All these complement fish really, really well. And then you could throw in some nettles or ramps or I think
just cook them first. You don't have to eat them raw.
You don't have to eat them raw. Any kind of wild greens will incorporate really, really well. Try to think through the process of where did I cook this? Where did I catch this fish? And what's around for me to incorporate it in that sort of local area. But speaking of foraging, Adam, I've seen your giant hauls of mushrooms. You've shown them on the show before. You've been I picked 15 pounds of chicken of the woods today. Yeah. Have you used those in casseroles?
Definitely have. I got to get creative with the amount of mushrooms I bring home sometimes because I can't help myself. I'll bring home 10 pounds at a time and then, have to think of interesting ways to use them. So definitely have. I found that, especially chicken in the woods, it's those things where you're bringing in a huge haul. Mm-hmm. And they're really kind of sturdy mushrooms. I find I'll make a chicken of the woods specific casserole, or other mushrooms I might use as the mushroom cream sauce that you usually dump in from a can. I'll make something similar with oyster mushrooms or something that's a little more delicate. Either way, I end up using mushrooms a lot. Also, even in just when I'm browning some ground meat for casserole, I'll throw in dried mushrooms either as a powder or as whole or chopped up depending on what I have. I have a kind of plethora of dried wild mushrooms too in my pantry, and that's going to add more umami and flavor too. So there's endless ways to use them in casseroles. Like I said, some of those ones are so hearty they can actually start as the meat in quotes in the casserole. If you want to make a meatless one for to suit a situation, if you have a vegetarian in the mix or something, you can make a really cool, awesome wild casserole that's meatless, or you can add the mushrooms to enhance the meat. So whichever road you take. But maitake or hen in the woods, chicken in the woods, lion's mane, some big morels. Sometimes I get chanterelles that are the size of my fist. They all have a size and texture and flavor that really hold their own. So you can just treat them like a protein. Sear, roast them first to drive off that extra moisture, like we said. Then layer with starch and sauce. Mushrooms love cream, butter, cheese. But they also shine with wild grains like barley, acorn pasta, wild rice, chanterelles, chanterelle gratin with ramps, or hen of the woods strata with wild greens, lion's mane lasagna, baked with bechamel. These are all ideas you can really use. Really delicious. And that works also, like I mentioned, a strata. You can use it for a breakfast casserole. And don't sleep on those because those are also good. Potatoes, eggs, your protein or your mushrooms.
Also,
that
for those
umami-
that don't know, a strata is a breakfast casserole. Is it a common term you use?
It's like a stratification of bread and eggs and stuff. So it's like layers.
It's most commonly used to refer to rock layers formed by sedimentary rock. FYI.
Yeah. I remember that from geology class 20 years ago. Yeah, they're great breakfast, great easy breakfast casseroles that work for, if you have a whole crowd over on Christmas morning or New Year's morning or whatever for breakfast. Strata, really, you can just dump it all into one pot, cook it. You can make it the night before, so you don't have to wake up like at 4 a.m. to feed everyone. It's great.
Yeah, I would say too, like, oh gosh, what is it? What are the breakfast pie casseroles? Quiche.
Quiche, oh yeah.
Would
Yeah.
we throw quiche in casserole? I think
it's like a one pan kind of mixed thing. You could once again in kind of that gray casserole area, and not the gray casseroles that you may have seen at a potluck, but the gray area with
whether or not.
where
I
they
mean,
exist.
technically, is pizza a casserole?
Maybe something like Chicago deep dish.
Yeah,
I'd say pizza's more like a pie than a.
That's fair.
Yeah,
But a quiche could be a pie too.
true.
But-
Yes, maybe frittatas more.
Wait, hold. I got. So if you have a very cheesy casserole and it firms up really well, does it then turn into a cheesecake? I feel like we're going down this like random rabbit hole.
We're gonna need a food philosopher to answer these questions, I think.
It sounds like a department at Harvard. Food philosophy.
Yeah, exactly. It's something I might get into. Anyways, finishing off mushrooms, bringing it back in. Think of them either as the star or a filler. Like if you just have a little bit of venison or poultry, like wild poultry or fish, mushrooms can really help stretch that out. They can also add a lot of flavor, a lot of umami. They work well with like wild elements like spruce tips or juniper. Wild onions and ramps are amazing with mushrooms. So, they remind us that not every casserole needs meat to be satisfying, and sometimes the forest kind of provides enough for you, whether it's meat or not. Never go home empty-handed is what we always say. Moving on to wild edibles in your casserole bakes. Greens, roots, nuts, seeds. They're kind of the unsung heroes of wild casseroles. Nettles, lamb's quarters, dandelion greens, ramps, fiddleheads. They all bring freshness, lots of nutrition, and that kind of foraged edge of flavor that's going to make everything, stand out a bit better. It's not going to be bland, I'll tell you that much. You can treat these greens like spinach or kale, depending on the hardiness of them. Make sure you blanch or saute them, or just wilt them down in a pan before layering so they don't release all their water. And the ones on top kind of dry out all, and it's not nice. So make sure you pre-cook them. Roots like sunchokes, also known as Jerusalem artichokes, burdock root, cattail shoots, they can all replace potatoes, adding starchy heft. And like Justin said, if you're fishing and you catch a fish and you're going to want to make a casserole with it, look around you, because as those who fish in shorts know, there's often nettles around riverbanks. I've found that out the hard way a few times. There's cattail roots. There's a lot of things that you can just collect. It might be mushrooms like morels or something. There might be enough stuff to pick right where you're standing to bring home and make a whole casserole with. Wild rice is practically invented for casseroles. Nutty, it's chewy, it's able to absorb sauce and liquid without turning mushy. It's amazing. Nuts and seeds play their own role. Acorn meal makes great crust or a pasta substitute. Crushed hickory nuts or sunflower seeds add like a crunch or topping. The real beauty about wild edibles is that they're seasonal. So a spring nettle casserole gives way to a summer lamb's quarter bake, which leads to a fall mushroom and acorn gratin. These ingredients kind of tie your casserole to a time and place, making it not just comfort food, but, like a true flavor of the land. And I think that's really cool. It can really, instead of, having a one-hit wonder, you can kind of adapt your casserole as the seasons move on and make it really shine with whatever's available. And I feel that's that's a really cool thing about casseroles and working seasonally.
This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Do you ever find yourself playing the budgeting game? Well, with the Name Your Price tool from Progressive, you can find options that fit your budget and potentially lower your bills. Try it at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law. Not available in all states.
At Blinds.com, it's not just about window treatments. It's about you, your style, your space, your way. Whether you DIY or want the pros to handle it all, you'll have the confidence of knowing it's done right. From free expert design help to our 100% satisfaction guarantee, everything we do is made to fit your life and your windows. Because at Blinds.com, the only thing we treat better than windows is you. Visit Blinds.com now for up to 45% off with minimum purchase plus a professional measure at no cost. Rules and restrictions apply.
So we covered quite a lot about casseroles here. What are the main takeaways, would you say?
I think probably there's 4, right? Always par cook your dense ingredients, so your potatoes and your wild rice, so they finish at the same time as the rest. Season each layer lightly. Don't rely on the top or the sauce alone. You want to make sure you've got that flavor in there and that they're not dried out. Save your crispy toppings, your breadfruit, fried onions, cheese for the last 10 or 15 minutes so they don't burn. And then rest your casserole after baking. It helps it firm up and slice really clean. And then you balance that period between being a casserole, a cake, or a pie, or soup if it's super saucy. But let's talk through a couple recipes here. I'm gonna kick mine off with, I've got a great recipe on the Harvest Nature website: wild game cast iron enchiladas. And so I think this is just really, really straightforward recipe. Literally what you think of when you talk about cast iron enchiladas. You've got ground meat, you've got all your delicious onions, beans, rice, all your spices, chili powder, garlic, onion, all that, and your enchilada sauce and cheddar cheese. Literally just that. You're just going to take and mix all your meat, your beans, your onions after that's all browned up and seasoned really, really well. And then you're going to, I would add in a little bit of the enchilada sauce into that to give it a bit of texture as well. And then you're going to roll those in either flour or corn tortillas and then place them inside the cast iron pan, kind of arranged so they don't spill out. And then you're going to pour more enchilada sauce over the top and then sprinkle however much cheese you like. If you're Adam, maybe just a little bit. If you're me, maybe a lot, as long as it's not ricotta. And you go from there. I think if you want to do, there's different cheeses other than just your standard cheddar cheese. Like, go look at the Latin cheese row and whatever groceries around. They have some really great cheeses that are really, really good for melting too, and crisp up really nicely. And I think you'll be like pleasantly surprised. But Adam, what do you got? We'll do one more. Keep it tight.
So I'm going to do a curried venison hunter's pie that I have on the Intrepid Eater website. I call it hunter's pie because we're using venison. Shepherd's pie is lamb and cottage pie is beef. So I think hunter's pie makes sense. But I decided to do something, take a traditional recipe and make it a little different and a little more exciting. So this is basically your traditional shepherd's pie dish, but I've included a lot of South Asian spices and everything going on in there. So I'm kind of making my ground beef as the base, adding in, your onion, carrot, tomato paste, and tomato like you normally would. And then getting in with the garlic, ginger, green chili, some curry powder, garam masala, and curry leaves. For those who don't know, curry leaves aren't actually curry, but they're these edible leaves off a plant, and they have this really interesting flavor, and it's often used in Sri Lankan and southern Indian dishes. Sometimes hard to find, but if you have an Indian population living in your neighborhood, you'll probably find a store that has them, and they're great. So I'm cooking that all down using venison stock to make like a gravy. So it's like kind of meat with gravy, boiling potatoes to make the top, just the mashed potato topping. And then I'm just cooking it in the oven. But in Indian cuisine, they have this thing. It has a few different names. One of the names is chonk. You're basically taking like some spices and stuff and cooking it in ghee, and then kind of pouring it over the top. And you're just tempering your dish with this like kind of topping. So I'm making my chonk with ghee or butter works too, whole cumin seeds, and curry leaves, which get all crisped up. Think of like a crispy sage leaf in a dish. And I'm pouring that all over the top of the potatoes halfway through cooking and letting them crisp up with that, spiced butter on top. So now our meat has a kind of curry flavor with the spices and everything, and aromatics, and the top has this like buttery, delicious, crispy leaf kind of stuff on top. Cooking that until it's, it has all those nice little like black or brown spots on top. And I do all this in a cast iron pan as well, which makes I find it makes it better. It just tastes better in cast iron. Everything tastes better in cast iron to me. And so then you just have this shepherd's pie that's like got a ton of new flavors. I like to serve it with Indian pickles. It's so comforting and familiar, but so exciting and new. It's awesome. I recommend you try that one out.
So here's the big question then. What is your side sauce?
Side sauce for that? I made it pretty... I did like a nice gravy with it, but I would consider doing something... either, since it's like a South Asian dish, something like a raita, which is a cooling yogurt sauce similar to tzatziki. Ooh. A little more runny. You can do it with like mint or different things. So I'd either go with like a herbaceous raita, or it'll go something sweet like a mango chutney.
Ooh, yeah, that's what I was thinking about, was the chutney. I was like, ooh, that'd be really good, like a little chutney on the side.
Yeah.
That'd be good.
So
with
either
the
straight chutney,
yeah.
Or maybe even make like a light gravy with the chutney, so it's kind of sweet, spicy.
Or you could blend it, make it into like a thin sauce with a little bit of stock or juice in there.
That'd lots of options. It's a pretty rich dish, so I find the pickles kind of help cut through it too. So that's something acidic is nice, yeah.
I was thinking through my like enchiladas of, you could go with like a classic pico de gallo, or maybe like an avocado crema might be good as well.
Something lime.
Yeah. Or if you wanted to a completely opposite side of the spectrum, I forget. Gosh, what is it now? It's not. Is it matcha? The like seedy, it's the Mexican version of like chili, like. Chili oil from
chili crisp,
chili crisp, but with like pumpkin seeds and spices and things like that. Would be good over the top of it too. So definitely like side sauces, casserole side sauces.
Yeah, that's a new thing. It's the new flavor trend of 2026 is going to be.
We're gonna have to pen an article about why casserole side sauces matter. But anyway, all right. Well, I think we're short on time here. I just wanted to share a couple of recipes, and I want to share one, Adam share one, of kind of one that pokes up to the top of our plate. There's obviously tons of recipes for casseroles on both Harvest Nature's website and the Intrepid Eater, so be sure to go check those out. Adam, any last thoughts before we close out?
I think the broiler, which we spent a recent episode of a different podcast series saying that we don't use it much. I find for casseroles, a broiler in your oven is excellent. If you need that last little crisp, if you don't want to like blast your oven and overcook your casserole, but you still want that crispy top, the broiler is your friend. But what I do is I turn the broiler on, set the casserole under it, leave the oven door open a crack, and I just squat down and sit with it. You don't walk away from that.
No.
That will help crisp up your hash browns or your whatever you put on top of your crunchy stuff, but it will burn before you know. So just sit with it, let it get a little more crusty, and then take it out. And the broiler will help finish off your casserole in the perfect way, but you just don't walk away from it.
Also, that's my advice. Don't be afraid to use the torch.
Yeah, torches work great.
Yeah, torches work really, really well. But no, I think just get out there, explore the concept of the side sauce, mix those ingredients well, season well, sauce well, and I think you'll really enjoy it. Thanks everybody for listening. We'll make sure all the links and the show notes are included online, and then whatever podcast platform you're listening to, punch that 5-star button. Leave us a review, tell us we're doing right, or, tell us we're doing wrong. Thanks everybody. Have a good day.